In this video, I want to kind of show a new feature we've added. We're calling this kind of an announcements kind of component of our ESS portal application. We've added this in version 4.3. And let me first show kind of really the catalyst for this. So if you may not be aware, but in Kingston, ServiceNow, as part of the service portal, is adding kind of an announcements functionality. And so you can still use this. You probably wouldn't want to use this and ours, but you can use this with our application. Let me just kind of show you kind of how this works. So this would be dependent on being on Kingston. So if I add a new announcement, I'll just create a new one out here. And this is ServiceNow's feature, I should say. All right, so here's the announcement, the date from to, so I'll just say from yesterday to today. I'll just say till later today. Here is the summary. And you have some options in terms of the styling. Do you want to make it normal? Do you want to make it kind of this urgent kind of choices? And you can adjust these style choices. There's some options there, and you also have some options around how the users can just, if they click on, does it take them someplace within the portal, outside the portal, and can they dismiss this item? And then we go ahead and associate this to our application portal. And I will save this. This is one dependency. You have to kind of highlight which portals it's going to show up on. So now that I've done that, if I kind of reload my portal page, I'll show you kind of how the out-of-the-box ones show up. So this is the out-of-the-box service portal announcements. Pretty handy feature. You can have a click on it. If I had put a click destination to this announcement, if I allow the dismissals, you have the dismissal X box over here. If you have more than one, so let's just say test announcement 2, summary number 2. I insert that. And I'll refresh this page again. What you get is kind of this stacked kind of model here, right? I guess I could just take one of these and make it different styles so you can kind of see what that looks like. All right, so one's red, one's blue in terms of the stack nets. Now the downside or the limitations of this, and kind of why we wanted to, we like this feature, but we wanted to kind of maybe extend or add our own kind of functionality, was one, we wanted a little more control over where you position this announcements header or announcements kind of bar, how you style it, how you color code it. We wanted a little more control over this. So right now this is, it really isn't much you can do with this other than apply your own page level or theme level styles to the kind of top level kind of components of this, and kind of targeting some of these classes to go after it. But there's no, like, you can't position it underneath the carousel here, you can't put it underneath the menu bar here, etc. So so with that said, so let me show you what we've done. So let me go ahead and turn these off just so you're not seeing both sets of announcements. So we've added our own announcements table, very similarly structured to what I just showed ServiceNow created. Though we've done a few things with here. So a lot of the same functionality in terms of defining the title, a summary, whether it's active or not, from to, same kind of model. Ability to set a target page or URL, kind of duplicate that same functionality. The ability to apply a different kind of CSS class. You want to apply different color coding standards, normal versus outage versus urgent. That's all kind of duplication as well. But some of the things we've done in addition is we've extended it so you can kind of isolate the announcements to a specific user criteria. So if you want some announcements to be targeted towards a certain department, or users with specific roles, or users in a certain location, the user criteria gives us that flexibility to be able to target our announcements to the recipients. So that's one major piece that we've done with this, is making sure you can kind of drive more from not just a role-based or public-based perspective that the out-of-the-box announcements thing does, but be able to target more granularly using the user criteria. So that's one aspect. Another thing you'll see here is a script contents option. So if I don't have this checked, it's just going to take my summary and my title as it is. But now you have kind of a scripting area here. So if I want to have a dynamic title, whether I want to conditionally disable the announcement or not show the announcement based off of some conditions, I can do that by setting this answer.include equals to false. That won't show. Answer equals .include equals true does show, right? And I can manipulate the title, the summary, the targets, the links, right? So all that I can do kind of in a scripting aspect. So that's one major notable part to this. The other thing, and let me just throw an announcement out here so you can kind of see what they look like. Just make this one go much longer. So I'll save this. So in this case, you'll see we've got this announcement that kind of shows up, and then we can position where we want to display this, right? So this gives us a lot more control over kind of how we want to style as well as position this. So just to give you an example, this particular theme, this Metro theme, we kind of pinned it underneath the header. Basically, to do this, if I search for announcements, you'll see there's kind of one line kind of in this header record to kind of say where do I want to stick this announcements kind of component in here. And there are some options here, and I'll show you in a minute kind of what I mean. There's an options related to how do I want to display this. Do I want to display it more in kind of this carousel, displaying multiple records that kind of loop around, the duration of that looping, or whether I want to show it in kind of more of a stacked kind of model, which I'll show what that looks like here in a moment. And then the other thing we did, most of these ones that are, because all of them pretty much, we started with this, we tried to keep it thin, right? So it's a thin message that you can then see more details. So you see the summary. If you expand to see more, view details takes you to whatever that target source is. And you can dismiss these. And the dismiss, we didn't have a non-dismissal option, but basically the dismiss kind of functions the same way as we've used other events notifications, where you can, in essence, mark them as red, and that'll then create, in essence, a dismissal for that particular announcement record. So further, just to highlight, if I were to create another announcement here. So let me just expand this so you have more than one announcement. So in this case, it's going to basically loop through and show me my announcements, kind of fade in, fade out, and show one versus the other in terms of my list. And obviously, I can suppress one of them or suppress both of them by acknowledging them, and see more details about them by doing show more or show less. So that's kind of the structure of that. The other thing I wanted to highlight real quickly, as I mentioned, control over styling. So there is, you'll see in any of our headings, header records, there's some options in here to be able to control how do I want to style these announcements. Some of these in terms of how do I want to color them, in terms of the background color for an outage one versus a normal versus degradation, or whatever classes you assign to these announcements. You can kind of define your color coding schemes for those. If you want to move it around, compress it, make it smaller, things of that nature, all that's kind of within your control as far as displaying these particular announcements. So just to show you a slightly different, another theme, kind of how it's styled, same idea here is that we've got the announcements in a carousel, kind of pinned underneath the header. In this case, the colors are a little differently, or little different. Some have clicks, some don't have clicks, right? Same dismissal kind of options and actions. The other one I want to show here quickly, if I go to a different theme, go to our iPortal theme just to show you. This is one that we set it up to be more of a stacked kind of model. So in the stack model, this looks similar to what you find out of the box with ServiceNow's announcements, where you have multiple messages, kind of wherever you want to position them. In this case, we threw them to the top, right? And instead of scrolling through or looping through the different announcements, you see that it's one of as many as you have to see. As you open them up, you get the expanded list of those details of those items. You can collapse them back together. It takes up a little more real estate than the carousel, but can give you kind of a full page view of those announcements. Now the other thing I want to hit on that's kind of critical or notable in here is, so we've kind of wired in the announcements along with outages. So for example, if I take and create a new outage record. So let me go create a new outage record for Cloud PC. Let's see, here is spell it correctly. All right, I can start and begin my outage now. And this is controlled by some business rules, so you can obviously turn this off if you don't want to. There's some business rules that basically on creation of these outages. If I go look at my announcements, I'll see I've also created a new announcement for this outage. Now the key thing to know with this is you'll see it's got this approval status of pending. So if I come out to a user perspective, I'm not going to see any change out here. Now one thing I should also highlight about these announcements is these are using record watchers, so as the announcements change, the page doesn't need to be refreshed in order for those adjustments to be viewed out here from a consumer perspective. But the idea behind the outage here is we're not publishing immediately the outage information and the announcements to the consumers. Instead, what we want is a process where the service owner can review the outage, kind of put in the details related to the title, the summary of what they want to articulate to their customers, and then authorize or approve this. So I happen to be the service owner for this Cloud PC service. So I can, in essence, I'm being routed this for approval. So I would go under my approvals. Right, I would see that I've got a new item requested my approval for this announcement. Right, from here I can come to the announcement record. I can clarify Cloud PC is undergoing maintenance, should back up 2 p.m. today. Right, I can put some more additional details out here about the particular message or some particular details about this outage. Right, and then I can come to my approval record and approve this. Right, now once I approve this, I go back to my announcement, you'll notice approval status is now approved, and my record's active. So now we've got this announcement that shows up on our page. Right, in this case, an outage one that's highlighted with kind of this red outage information. If it was a degradation, it would be kind of more orangish. So the other thing I want to highlight with this is you'll see a field on here called restrict to service subscribers. And what this is it's leveraging basically the service portal has a notification subscription component to it. So for example, if I go to, let's just go to our Cloud PC service here. And you'll notice under the status tab, I've got this I am already subscribed for service status announcements. So if I unsubscribe, now it doesn't go away immediately because, as I said, this is triggered based off of the record watch is triggered based off of this update. But let me just make a simple update in here. If I make an update to this message, what you'll find is now I don't have those 3 messages here because I'm no longer a service subscriber to this Cloud PC, and this particular announcement is targeted towards my service subscribers, so it's filtering from my view. Now this is going to be, I should highlight, this is going to be on top of user criteria. So if you user criteria and you have restricted service subscribers, it's only going to show for those users that have the user criteria, that they meet the user criteria and they're a service subscriber. I'm just going to add myself back, and I'll make a quick update to this just to make it show up again. So the other thing I want to highlight with this too is so my outage now shows back up again. Right, if I go back to my original outage record, right, and I say end outage now, there's some synchronization here in that if we go back to our announcement record, you'll see the from and the to has now been updated with this information. And so if I just manipulate this just to show this, it ended minute ago, right? If I do that, notice my announcement for that outage suppresses or hides from my particular view. So that's kind of, I guess, the key I wanted to highlight there as far as the outage behavior and the routing for approvals. And those are set up to where the service owners who can approve the ability to make edits to the announcer records you have to have either portfolio admin rights or ITIL rights in order to make those updates, because that's kind of the same dependency on being able to make edits to the service records. That's kind of the logic behind that. But so that covers kind of announcements. I hope this was a helpful feature. And I should highlight this is, again, for version 4.3, which is a Jakarta and Kingston version. So you can use this feature with Jakarta in kind of an early use before you move into, without using the Kingston ServiceNow versions of this functionality.